It's 8:32. Good morning and welcome to another edition of our post-cabinet press briefing. First, I would like to welcome members of the media, also members of the viewing public online, and also welcome a team from the Ministry of Tourism, which we will introduce at a later on period. I would like to start by outlining some developments in terms of reports from cabinet, as well as some board appointments and approvals of contracts by the cabinet. Let me start by wishing you a warm welcome to Post Cabinet. This morning, we will have a presentation by the Minister of Tourism, who opened the sectoral debates in Parliament yesterday. I also want to highlight in the beginning a very important event that took place over the last several days, which was the Regional Conference on Crime. Viewers may remember that on Sunday, Prime Minister Holness departed the island to attend the first ever regional security conference in Trinidad and Tobago, along with other CARICOM counterparts. The conference, which ran from April 17 to 18, focused on addressing crime and violence as a public health concern. The event's theme was the crime challenge. None of us are safe until all of us are safe. The Prime Minister, in summary, noted that crime is the most pressing matter and the loss of young male lives due to the use of illegal firearms that are traded for drugs destined for North America is a significant concern. In his presentation, he asked for a prioritization of strategies to combat the influx of illegal guns into our country with the same level of vigor and attention that we give to the prevention of illegal drugs entering North America. He added that the occurrence of crime and violence has detrimental effects on our community, resulting in physical harm and the loss of life, as well as psychological trauma. It also adversely impacts our standing as a secure and desirable tourism destination. And acts of violence are a significant cause of persons seeking medical attention and treatment. And those who witness and experience such events may suffer from significant mental health issues as a result. The Prime Minister also suggested that in order to tackle the problem effectively, it is crucial to update our laws to keep pace with the evolving nature and magnitude of the threat. Our legal system should include provisions that enable the implementation of robust security measures, emergency protocols, and proactive measures that can disrupt and contain criminal activity. By controlling the space in which these criminal acts operate, we can take preventative action to minimize the risk involved due to violence. Prime Minister has returned to the island from that trip. I wish to also outline some reports that were made to Cabinet. One was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade advised Cabinet that a media report that was circulated over the weekend of March 31, 2023, indicating that travel restrictions were being imposed by Belize on nationals of the Republic of Haiti and Jamaica, stating that the imposition of visa requirements for Haitians and the provision of evidence of fully paid hotel reservations for Jamaicans prior to travel. The minister advised Cabinet that she had contacted the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade and Immigration of Belize, who informed that the news report was inaccurate, noting that the Belizean Cabinet had met and had agreed to impose visa requirements on Haitians traveling to Belize. But the matter for Jamaicans traveling to Belize was under review, but they would not impose visa requirements on Jamaicans at this time. I also, as Minister without portfolio, gave Cabinet an update on the Road Traffic Act Public Awareness Campaign, which will be labeled Know the Road Code. I outlined to the Cabinet that the Ministry of Transport and Mining had made adjustments to the Road Traffic Act to focus on regulating behavior and the laws of all road users of Jamaica in an attempt to make roads safe and secure for every citizen. The awareness campaign, Know the Road Code, would bring attention to key concerns regarding proper road usage to communicate the desired behaviors to improve the quality of the road experience for all Jamaicans. The objectives of the campaign were to minimize road fatalities, build a culture of responsible driving in the wider community, increase public awareness of the revised Road Traffic Act, promote safer roads for the Jamaican public, and sensitize the Jamaican public about the revised regulation. Also, the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, observed advised Cabinet that he had convened a series of meetings with representatives of the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, the National Solid Waste Management Authority, and the Social Development Commission to develop a comprehensive program to change behavior related to waste management and disposal. He advised Cabinet that this would include the utilization of traditional and non-traditional media, along with engagement of schools and communities through collaborations with the Ministry of Education and Youth, the Social Development Commission, local authorities, and the private sector. This phase was expected to commence, which is the public education aspect of it, in the summer of this year. I wish to also outline that Cabinet gave approval for the appointment of the following persons to the St. Anne's Bay Regional Hospital Management Committee for the period of 3 years from April 3, 2023 to the 2nd of April, 2026. The committee will be chaired by Mr. Michael Bell-Navis, and some of the members of the committee include Mr. Dallas Dickinson, Mr. Kevin Hall, Reverend Andrew Blake, Mr. Ian Isaacs, Ms. Donna Marie Howe, and Mr. Carlton Ricketts. There was also approval for persons to be added to the Quarries Advisory Committee effective April 3, 2023 to the 12th of June, 2024. These are Mr. Hugh Gentles as chairman, Ms. Marilyn Daly, and Mr. Richard Nelson. Cabinet also gave the approval for a joint venture agreement between the Factories Corporation of Jamaica and the Hinan Fifth Construction Group Jamaica Company Limited for the implementation of the Naggohead Integrated Business Center in Portmore, St. Catherine, to construct a new mixed-use industrial commercial development on lands comprising 32 acres. There was also the approval of a joint venture agreement between the Factories Corporation of Jamaica and the same company for a implementation of the construction of the Bournebrook Urban Center in Port Antonio. And this will be a mixed-use commercial development on lands comprising 668 acres and 140,000 square feet of building during a 2-year construction period. Would also like to advise that Cabinet approved the award of a contract to provide security services at the National Health Fund. This contract was to Modern Investigation and Security Company to the tune of just over $162 million and will last for a 2-year period. There was also the award of a contract for shoreline protection works in Orange Bay, Portland, under the Government of Jamaica Adaptation Fund Program. And this was approved through the Planning Institute of Jamaica to the tune of $64 million to Quality Plus Contracting Company. And this was endorsed by the Public Procurement Commission. There was also the award of a contract to Charles Kendall Incorporated to provide technical assistance for the strengthening of Jamaica's public procurement system. And this was just over $1 million US. And this will be the provision of technical assistance for the strengthening, as I said before, of the public procurement system. And finally, on contracts, there was the award of a contract to supply 30 double cab 4x4 pickup vehicles. And this was through the National Water Commission, and this included a servicing contract as well. And this was to the tune of $192 million. I would like to welcome to Post Cabinet Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, who I suspect has some wonderful news. And I will ask Mr. Bartlett to introduce his team before he speaks. Mr. Bartlett gave his presentation yesterday at the to open this to open the sectoral presentation, and gave some really good news about the resilience of our tourism product, especially coming out of a very challenging COVID period. I would like to now welcome Minister Bartlett to the podium, sir.
Thank you very much, Minister Robert Nestor Morgan. And a pleasant good morning to all, particularly members of the media, and for the purposes of the wider uh, viewership and participation, all of Jamaica. I'd like to introduce, of course, the team that's here with us. Director of Tourism, Donovan White, the Minister of All Purpose in the Ministry of Tourism, Delano Everett, the Executive Director, of course, of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Dr. Kerry Wallace, and my Senior Communication Director, Mr. Kingsley Roberts, and Ms. Gillian Baldia. That's the team with us today. I think there are one or two others who are coming, but the traffic has been a little challenging this morning. So I wanted to use today to focus on two key areas of the presentation yesterday. Of course, I'm open for question on all aspects of it, but I think for the purposes of this morning, I want to emphasize the growth projections that we made for a recovery, a full recovery from COVID-19 to be 2024, if you all recall. Well, we are going to be 1 year earlier. We will, in fact, we have already surpassed COVID-19, pre-COVID-19 figures. We started to surpass them in June of last year when we start on a month-by-month basis to see, higher numbers than 2019. And that has continued into giving us the best winter that we've ever had in the history of tourism in Jamaica. We brought in just a little under 1.2 million visitors and earned 1.1 billion US dollars. But a feature of this recovery has been the level of local supplies that are now inserted in the tourism industry. And that is what we really wanted. When we started talking about building back tourism and enabling growth on the 5 pillars that I had established of gastronomy and shopping and health and wellness and tourism and culture and art and music and entertainment, we said that we wanted to increase the retention level from what it was then 30 cents to 40. We did. And we said we had Jamaica earning 40 cents from the dollar at the turn of 2020. And then, of course, came COVID. So everything went to zero. Well, the good news is that what has happened since then is that we have now realized that more local goods are finding their way into the hotels. Through the Alex program I mentioned yesterday, that platform that the Tourism Enhancement Fund established with the Ministry of Agriculture, we were able to bring in 6 months over $300 million of trade between hotels and small farmers. These are farmers with 1 acre to 5 acres. Now, that's different from the large farmers who are already producing and supplying the hotels. And then we have the ordinary small and medium enterprises now providing gifts and curio and all sorts of condiments and so on that the hotels are needing. And you're seeing a lot more of Jamaican nutraceuticals finding their way into our hotels. And all of that means more retention of the dollar here, because instead of importing those things, we are now be able to provide them. And the Tourism Enhancement Fund has done a tremendous job through its Linkages Network program to bring more locals into the value chain of tourism. And then, of course, the new and exciting um, business model that has emerged uh, before COVID, but I think it has taken on new life since COVID, and that's a sharing economy with Airbnb. And Airbnb now is providing accommodation all across the country. Some 100 million US dollars was earned by ordinary people across Jamaica who have one room, two rooms, three rooms, and who live in various places across the island, including some depressed communities that you normally wouldn't think that tourism would touch. Downtown, Trenchtown, Tivoli, all over Octem Betty, places like those that you never hear about, people in Warsaw and all over in Non-Such and so on, all across the island. 29% of all the visitors who came to Jamaica last year went into Airbnb accommodations. So all of these new developments have been bringing more and more Jamaicans into the earning stream of tourism. And I said yesterday, and I repeat, never before in the history of the country has tourism contributed so much to the economy of Jamaica. And when we look even at the revenues that go straight into the Consol Fund, we heard the stories from the Minister of Finance before, and I repeated them yesterday. In fact, my numbers are even a little better because of the timeline that I was reporting on versus the timeline that he had. And so we are seeing that over 50 billion Jamaican dollars of direct tax earning went into the consolidated fund from just the fact that the tourists came, not about the expenditure that they did in the supermarkets and to the craft vendors and at the attractions and so on. It's just about what we charge them for coming. Head tax, 2EF tax, the guard has room tax, and GCT. And these are the direct charges that they pay, airport fees, and so on. So when we look now at how the future is going to be, we have to be a little more empirical. We're going to have to be a little more evidence-based now in terms of how we talk about tourism and what we can show from tourism. So 20,000 new rooms are expected to come on stream over the next 5 to 10 years. That has enormous implications for growth, but it also asks a lot from the country. But what is it that it asks? And then what is it that it's going to give? And who is going to benefit from it? Well, for that, we are doing a study. And so we have already established a task force on looking at the implications, the impact, the economic impact of 20,000 new rooms coming to Jamaica. And so we have identified a source of funds for this study to be done. And I have had discussions with some multilaterals, not ready yet to say which, that are willing to support this study, especially that they think too that tourism is the driver, not just for the economy of Jamaica, no, but for the entire Caribbean. And so they're going to be working with us on a study of the future of tourism in the Caribbean, as well as the future of tourism here in Jamaica. But I just wanted to indicate that what this study will seek to do is to identify and evaluate the potential impact of the proposed development on gross domestic product, foreign exchange earnings, investment, and government revenue and expenditure. It will seek to identify and evaluate the potential impact of the proposed developments on income and employment, both direct and indirect. It to identify and evaluate the potential impact of the proposed development on key related sectors such as agriculture, construction, manufacturing, and entertainment, to identify and evaluate the potential impact of the proposed development on infrastructure needs, the environment and people, particularly housing, transport, and recreation, and it provide recommendations to mitigate potential negative impacts while capitalizing on the positive impacts. And finally, it will provide a credible, rigorous, evidence-based information arrangement so that we can use that for public awareness programs and to build out the value chain of the tourism industry. Just to emphasize that this will be a transformative act because it will be the first time that we really are doing a detailed impact study in the manner that I just described. But what it will do more than anything else is to identify what is the carrying capacity that is required to enable environmental sustainability as well. So that you're not just going to be building out 20,000 rooms and leave it like that. You're going to look at the implications of doing so, and you're going to build resilience in all of this so that because of the vulnerability of Jamaica, where we sit in the Caribbean Sea, and the issues relating to weather um, events that take place in our space. We have to be cognizant of that, and we have been drivers of the issue of resilience over the world, telling people that we must learn how to uh, predict, how to mitigate, how to manage, how to recover and recover quickly from disruptions and then to grow afterwards. So we have now to demonstrate that. And this study will put us in a good position so to do. And the study, of course, is coming against the background of the number of rooms that I had indicated yesterday and how widely spread these rooms are going to be across Jamaica. You know, Hanover, we said would have a little over 4,000 new rooms in the mix. Westmoreland, and just to further indicate that last night I was with some of the players who are here looking at the Westmoreland development that I hinted on yesterday. So these are real development that are coming for the Savlamar and the areas around Savlamar, which normally was not in tourism. So every town in Jamaica now, every major town is going to be involved in tourism product and offerings and experiences. The Prime Minister's thrust to connect the island in a single effort through almost a continuous roads network is going to be vital in this regard because when you think of St. Thomas and what's going to happen there, St. Thomas is going to really boom. In fact, already, I was talking last night with the head of the Factories Corporation and the work that they are doing there, and he's telling me that it's unbelievable what has happened in St. Thomas in terms of, you know, land value and the demand that is emerging for development in that area. It's going to be the new, shall I say, the new Negril, because St. Thomas, the virgin beach areas is like what Negril was uh, 40, 50 years ago when development started there. And we're excited that people are already going there. And we have people from the DOM rep looking at possibilities of replicating some of the things that have been done elsewhere in St. Thomas. And we're getting some visitors from the Middle East next month that will also have an interest in St. Thomas. Um, Portland is up. Prime Minister has already indicated a very powerful program for the regeneration, redevelopment, and in fact reimagining of Port Antonio and the tourism product in Portland. The highway that is now under construction is going to also be another game changer in terms of connectivity there. St. Mary along the coast from Aracabessa back to the border of Portland. In fact, all the way into Port Antonio. We are building the new Jamaica Riviera, and we're looking at a different type of product for there. No high-rise, mass tourism on that side. Is going to be more boutique type hotels with villas, very up-end, high-end villas, and they are emerging already. As a matter of fact, we're seeing it coming through a number of locals who are investing, and that's one of the excitement that I have. There's a big local company that is going to do a major project in St. Mary with villas, lots of high-end villas, and then there's a team that's looking at entertainment, so and movie making in areas of St. Mary. So all of these are going to combine to give that new thrust. This 20,000 rooms is going to represent the largest number of rooms for Jamaica in tourism's history. There's no question about that. And the impact in terms of jobs that will be created, the impact in terms now of the supplies that are going to be required from our farmers, from our manufacturers, from our providers of services, transportation, service, and others is going to be very significant indeed. Finally, I want to indicate that the human capital development strategy of tourism is now at a height, and I'm excited about the prospects of our continuing through the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation to certify all, and I'm saying all because that's the ambition, all the workers in the tourism industry. We are on a good path. In fact, in the first 5 years since we've established the center, we've done over 10,000 workers who have been certified through the American Hotel and Lodging Education Institute and the American Culinary Foundation. We're expanding that program by bringing in partnerships now with the University of Malaga, and also we're talking with the university in Austria. These are going to be new partners to give higher skill levels to the workers, particularly our chefs, because that's a big area. I think that Jamaica excels. Our food is just delectable, and what we want to do is to upscale that potential to offer more culinary experiences for visitors coming to Jamaica. So we will be establishing a center in the Montego Bay Convention Center that will be dubbed the Institute of Gastronomy. So Jamaica will have an Institute of Gastronomy partnering with the Malaga University, which is well known in Europe and elsewhere for Michelin standard chefs and restaurants that they produce. So, and the importance of enabling these type of development for the workers of the industry is to help to change labor market arrangements. And I want to emphasize that a little bit, because we do complain, and correctly so, that tourism workers tend to be at the lower end of the employment scales and so on, because we have always been seeing tourism workers as casual by and large, and also as seasonal. Now seasonality is gone. There's no more seasons in Jamaica. It's just one season now, all year round, 24/7. And so what we have to do is to build the capacity of our workers throughout all the areas of activity, and to train them, to certify them, so we can classify them, and we can then remunerate them according to classification. And in that lies the reform that is needed for for the labor market arrangement. So I will not agree with anybody who is talking about legislating the marketplace. The marketplace must remain as it is. But what we need to do is to develop two things: merit, that is, train, qualify, make you appropriate for the job. And secondly, equity, that is, you must not be denied the opportunities to work and to excel, to grow, to expand, and to be able to deliver on your own creative energies. So this represents the overall policy frame as well as the strategy and the direction that this industry is moving as we continue to be the driver of the economy of Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Um, so we will take a few questions from for the minister, or questions from me as minister without portfolio. So, as is customary, you can signal by raising your hand and identifying yourself and the media house you're from. Naomi.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning as well to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, who is just entered as well. Our first question, Mr. Hall.
Morning, Minister Bartlett. The study you spoke about, that the multinationals will pay considering financing. When do you expect it to start? How long do you expect it to last? And when should Jamaica hear the results?
The study?
Yes.
Okay. Well, actually, the RFP is now going out, and we are hoping to hear from, potential suppliers, as it were. I'm hoping that within the next 3 months, we would have a response and we're able to evaluate. I know that by early May, I will have a sense as to what type of multilateral support we're going to be getting for the funding overall of this study. But we have already made provisions in this budget for, preliminary activities. So, and we've done that on the basis that we're pretty sure we're going to get the partnership, because the discussions now is about tourism, because it's the only, shall I say, activity, economic activity in the Caribbean, not just Jamaica, over which we have both competitive and comparative advantage. I mean, commodities used to be what made us: sugar, bananas, and so on. That's gone. Bauxite used to be another feature. That's also pretty much on its way out. So what we are left with are people, us. And so what our creativity can do, and what our ability to offer service, great service, quality service, and our creativeness, and our ability to provide strong, hospitable experiences. And these are the drivers. Now, tourism is the most consumption driven activity, economic activity on planet Earth. That's all people do. They travel to consume. And so if you provide the goods that they need to consume, you'll be wealthy when they have left. It's also said that tourism is the fastest way to transfer wealth from the rich to the poor. So that study, Arthur, I think is critical and seminal, and is going to be not just a driver for us, but I think it will become a reference point also for others in the Caribbean.
Minister, next question.
Good morning. I'm Mr. Shauna Small from the Jamaica Gleaner. I have a few questions for the minister as well as for Mr. Morgan. Minister Bartlett, how does the government, or how is the government exploring the off-beaten path as part of Jamaica's tourism product? For example, Chief Richard Curry last year expressed his interest in partnering with the government for the annual Maroon Festival. Is this something the government is open to doing?
Well, let me tell you what we've been doing through the Jamaica, the TAF and the linkage network. We have been working with people to drive new ideas. I spoke yesterday about the innovation incubator, where we're going after ideas, finding young people from all across the country. People, our people, that's what we have, who have ideas. And so once they have ideas and they come to us with good ideas about an experience, we try to incentivize that. And you've seen us work with the Coffee Festival, a movement today. Coffee Festival has taken off. We can then withdraw and leave them to have full sway with the private sector. We're going after more festivals, Rum Festival. We're going after Yam Festival up in the hills of Trelawney and so on and so forth. So any group that has an interest to provide a service, we are there with them. The country style tourism that Mrs. McIntyre Pike is driving in St. Elizabeth and Manchester and so on. Yes. So we are using the Tourism Enhancement Funds, Tourism Linkages Network to move into the rural and other parts of the country to enable more offerings, more experiences, so that people can then move out and find more places and more ways to spend the money that they bring when they come to Jamaica. This is all what this is about. So it doesn't matter who, we have an opportunity for you to do what is right. You don't have to come to us in any form and become part of any national movement. You just could be an individual and you live somewhere, because you'll be surprised. Tourism is the only industry in the world that people can make money from making two crabs race. You ever see that? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Minister. My next question is for Mr. Morgan.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Morgan, unions have accused the government of breaching the agreement under the compensation review. How does the government intend to address this?
Well, I'm sure that I saw, I think it was your paper that reported that there was to be an important meeting between the parties today. So I wouldn't want to make a statement before those meetings are held. The Ministry of Finance and Public Service engaged with unions over a period and crafted one of the most significant adjustments in public sector compensation, based on not just anecdotal, but also factual evidence. A significant majority of public sector workers are quite happy with the changes that have been made, not just to their positions in government, but also to the compensation that they now receive, especially those at the low end who have received significant upward adjustments to make their quality of life much better. But as I said to you before, there's a meeting to be had between the parties. The issue is a matter that is controlled by the Ministry of Finance through the minister and the technocrats there, and I wouldn't want to comment on that statement that you have made. I suspect after their meeting today, I saw Ms. Davis White make a comment, I think is in your paper. Suspect after their meeting today, you will hear more about it. Any other questions?
Thank you,
Naomi?
Minister. Janelle?
Hi, morning. I'm Jamila Maitland. I'm a reporter from TVJ. My question is to Minister Bartlett. I have one for you as well, Minister Morgan.
Can you want to ask mine first?
All right, sure. So there is work being done right now on Spanish Town Road, that major work by the NWC. We are approaching the deadline for that work. I think last year the Prime Minister had said that. Has it been discussed in cabinet? Any more extension to the work being done, and what is the timeline for that?
All right, specifically, no, we have not specifically discussed the timeline for Spanish Town. I think what has been discussed is the importance of the work that is being done there to really assist the persons in that area, particularly with water and so on. There is a significant project being done by the NWC, well, projects all across the island to bring water to more people. And the Spanish Town initiative is a part of that. You remember in the previous administration, we've did the ferry works, which did cause some disruption among Jamaicans, but I suspect that people who live in that area along the boulevard and other areas who now have water, who never had water previously, are very happy with the work. So with any project, there are going to be challenges, especially major infrastructure projects. But the government is very cognizant of the concerns of the citizens as it relates to the length of time it takes and the disruption. And we're working with our agencies to try and make these projects finish on time and within budget.
And for Minister Bartlett,
Yes.
so there have been some hoteliers along the 7 Miles beach in Negril, right? They're complaining about building too close to the shoreline. Now, there is a group down there called Nagalpa who oftentimes approve some of these building permits. However, they say that their work is being overridden when it comes here into Kingston. Does these projects come across your desk, and is the work of Nagalpa recognized by the government? And two, oftentimes the operators are slapped with sanctions rather than the buildings being demolished. What is the approach of the government? Because over a long-term period, these buildings oftentimes become, issues as it relates to the environment. So there is an approach to regularize rather than demolish. What is the approach of the government?
Well, I think first of all, there's a recognition that we have to significantly restructure and reorder the use of public spaces, particularly for touristic purposes. Negril developed without that kind of structured arrangement. And we have to now reimagine that entire area. Prime Minister has already indicated that he is looking at reorganizing that entire Negril area, making a new town center, removing the existing Norman Manley Boulevard and put it further to the east, so that more space can be provided now for touristic activities closer to the beach. So we are going to see that level of rearrangement of major townships and major tourism centers. He spoke about Port Antonio, as I mentioned before, as well. Falmouth is another area that we have to look at in terms of that. So we are cognizant of the fact that there have been practices that have breached what we call protean environmental practices. But we are serious about correcting, and that is happening. The issue of demolition, I think that's a social issue too. You know, if the buildings are built outside of the code, where the integrity of the building itself is threatened or suspect, then the obvious response is to demolish. If it is built within physical areas for which adjustment can be made and easements can be provided, then you do that rather than destroy, because there's an economic cost that's borne by ordinary Jamaicans too who build. So we think that the effort always is to try to recover and to retrofit rather than to demolish and destroy.
Thank you, Minister. Another question at the back here.
Just want to also, in relation to the Spanish Town NWC pipeline, the Minister with responsibility for water, Matthew Samuda, will be here at the next post cabinet press briefing, and I'm sure he will give a comprehensive update on that particular project. Naomi?
Has the Prime Minister or any member of Cabinet signed the Leadership Code of Conduct that the Integrity Commission invited the PM and his Cabinet to sign from last year? And if no, can you provide an explanation as to why this has not been done? Also, what?
Can I answer the first question first? I have not been presented with a code of conduct to sign. I have not been consulted, and I'm speaking for myself as a duly elected member of parliament and as a member of the cabinet. I have not been presented with a code of conduct to sign. No code of conduct has been presented to me to sign. No consultations have been had with me as a duly elected member of parliament on a code of conduct. So I'm pretty much unable to comment on a code of conduct that I have never seen or had any discussions with anyone about.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Minister. Next question. What concrete steps are being made by the government to improve Jamaica's ranking on the Transparency International's latest corruption perception index, which was released in January? Jamaica scored 44 on the CPI with a ranking of 69 out of 180 countries.
Do you have the context of your question?
Well, the context would have definitely been because the code of conduct would have been an instrument used to.
Says who? Says who? Who says that the code of conduct is an instrument?
Oh, sorry. The code of, I'm asking about.
No,
the
but you said
step-
the code of conduct is an instrument, and I'm trying to find out where that fact came from.
Okay, well, maybe it's my interpretation. Let me say it could possibly be my interpretation of what the code of conduct would be used to do. But I'm asking about the concrete steps being taken by the government to address the issue of corruption in the
All right.
country.
I'm really happy you asked the question because it gives me an opportunity to speak about what I think is one of the fundamental approaches of the government as it relates to the anti-corruption fight. It was this government under Andrew Holness who passed the Integrity Commission bill. It was this government under Andrew Holness who has funded the Integrity Commission, significant funding. It's one of the agencies in government that has never said that they lack funding to do their work. There has been no evidence of the government of Jamaica or any agent of the government of Jamaica interfering with any investigation. As a matter of fact, we have consistently cooperated with all anti-corruption investigations by whichever agency, whether it's MOCA, FID, or so on. It is also this administration that has been most accountable wherever issues have arisen as it relates to questionable actions. In previous times, where things have happened within government and accusations have been made, there was, in many cases, no consequence. We know as cabinet ministers that if we function in a way that raises questions about our acts as ministers, then consequences will flow. It's a clear direction by the Prime Minister. If you notice, the corruption perception index has remained pretty consistent over time. It is not a case where Jamaica has fallen or risen. It has remained consistent. And a part of the reason that it has remained consistent is I think that there's a recognition that under this administration, there has been the creation of one of the most robust anti-corruption ecosystems in the Western Hemisphere. I don't think if you look across, you'll see any as strong, as independent comparatively as the one that exists today in Jamaica. As it relates to code of conducts, I can't comment on that because I've never seen it. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
Morning, Jamila again from TVJ. So, Minister, there was, I think the last time you were here was a question about that committee commissioned by the Labor Ministry to go and investigate some of the issues that they've been having overseas for the farm work program. Now, we saw a report that it was basically having some huge disparities in what the workers who go over there were experiencing and what the report and what the committee was able to gather, right? What do you make of these huge disparities in the experiences of the workers?
Have you seen the report?
I've seen a report. Well, you know what? Has cabinet seen the report? So if you can, if
What
you're
I'm
able to
aware
comment
of,
on that.
what I'm aware of is that the minister will be making a presentation in his sectoral. Today he's speaking about security guard issue. And is making a statement about the security guard issue today in Parliament. And he will be speaking about the farm work issue at his sector. But I will just add, my brother is a farm worker. He goes up every year, spends a few months on a farm. He's a farmer from Clarendon. And when I heard the reports, I called him and I said, but how these things are happening and you didn't say anything to me. And he said to me that from time to time, issues come up engaging. And I said this last week. With any employer-employee relationship, there are going to be challenges. But what we are finding out based on the reports, not from government people, because the people who went to do the investigation weren't employees of the government. They were people in the union movement. I think Helen Davis White was there and some other persons independent of government. What we're found is that there were very few issues that rose to the level of what was described as a slave-like environment. And I think a lot of the workers were a bit upset that many of them were engaged in work on farms that had reasonable accommodation. They were being compensated appropriately, but their engagement was being caricatured as if they were involved in slavery, which is not so. And the evidence does not support that. But the minister will be making a fulsome statement to Parliament on it. So there's the discrepancy that you see. Maybe it's the full truth coming out to contextualize what were probably exaggerated claims, not suggesting that people may not have had issues, but the whole broad brushing of the program as a kind of oppressive engagement. That is not the reports that we're getting, and the evidence is not supporting that. All right.
And I have one more question for Minister Bartlett.
Sure.
So,
Minister?
So recently you have a group of fishermen in Little London. It's an area called Big Bridge in Westmoreland. So they've been trying to, I guess, to reignite their business practice that they have there, which is a little rafting company. Now, they're trying to seek some help from the tourism minister. I spoke with Mr. Seabright recently, who said that the ministry will be jumping on board. I think that was about 2 weeks ago, and you know that these guys, they're trying to get something started. So I wanted to find out, has this come across your desk? And, to what extent will the ministry be jumping on board to say they're going to help out these gentlemen?
Right. Well, you know that the river rafting regulations require us to enable a determination of the carrying capacity of the rivers, the state of the rivers. And we work as much as we can to assist in preparing these rivers too for rafting. The unregulated rafting is something that we have to manage and to move swiftly to regularize by training the rafters properly and also to enable them to build appropriate safe rafts, because that's a big part of it. And so take them through a process, and that will be done for the Cabaretta River. It is not a designated river yet for rafting, but we are looking at how to regularize it. We recognize that there's going to be a greater call on the small and medium-sized operators in Jamaica for space in the tourism value chain, because that's a big item. The recovery driven by tourism has attracted a lot more people who have an interest in earning, and so we are geared towards that. But we've just established the Jamaica, what a historic policy framework called the Destination Assurance Framework and Policies. And that destination policy is going to help to define the areas of activity. And the Tourism Development Company, TPDCO, is charged with the responsibility of being the monitors and the custodian of the integrity of that whole process. So I can say to the folks in Big Bridge, let's not waste the moment to disrupt the process. Let's use the moment to create an understanding of how you now can be able to access that piece of wonderful asset that Jamaica has and make good money over time.
Thank you, ministers.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I suspect that we're at an end, right on time. I want to thank Minister Bartlett and their team for attending upon Post Cabinet this morning. And I'd also like to thank members of the media who have been asking important questions, and also members of the public who have been tuning in. We will commence again next week at the same time, 8:30 a.m., where we will have another installment of our post-cabinet press briefing. Until then, thank you very much, and may you have a safe and wonderful afternoon and morning.